Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Sania Gilani, your course instructor, and this is our lecture number 17. In the previous lecture, we talked about the age of sensibility, which bridged the gap between classical sensibility and modern sentiments. It was the age which talked about wit and emotions together. This week, we are going towards a little bit of a different period, and we are going to talk about early Romanticism, which was a revolt against reason. The age of sensibility gave rise to this particular age. Romanticism is a very big age, so we are dividing this particular lecture into two chunks. In the first part, we are going to talk about early Romanticism, and in the next, we are going to talk about the later chunk of this particular age. So, what are we discussing this week? This week, we are discussing the age of early modernism, which is also known as Romanticism. This topic will talk about how Romanticism gave rise to experiment. So before I talk about all the nitty and gritty about the historical context, let's break down the term itself. Romanticism is a term which originates from the word romance, which talked about poetry of romances. Romantic poetry or romances were originally tales of heroism, of chivalry. They were about the free liberty and expression of knights and warriors who went on adventures throughout the land. The early romantics picked up that cue of escapism and love for nature for the knights in their poetry and translated it through experiments to talk about something that combined humans' will for freedom and also their desire to talk about their emotions. So, before we go in detail of that history, I just gave you a context. Now imagine a scenario like usual. Imagine you're living in England in the late 18th century, around 1780. The air smells of coal and damp streets. Machines are beginning to hum in factories. Farmers are leaving countryside for grimy industrial towns. People talk of progress, reason, and science. But in this mechanical and rational world, some minds begin to feel suffocated. They start asking, where is the heart in all this progress? Where is the soul in the age of machines? Can reason alone explain what it means to be human? Out of all that restlessness was born one of the most powerful literary movements in history, Romanticism. This lecture explores the first half, from 1780 to 1800, when English writers began rebelling against the age of reason and seeking truth through emotions, imagination, and nature. To understand Romanticism, we must first understand what came before it. The 18th century, often called the Age of Enlightenment or the Age of Reason, we discussed about it previously, was dominated by logic, order, and balance. Writers like Alexander Pope and Dr. Johnson valued clarity and decorum. They believed human nature was universal and could be understood through reason. But by the 1770s and 1780s, several forces began to shake that certainly shook the entire landscape of the world. Those incidents were the American and French revolutions. They awakened the ideas of individual liberty. Then came the Industrial Revolution, which created both wealth and misery for its people, alienating people from nature. Philosophers like Rousseau preached that civilization corrupts humanity, that true wisdom lies in emotion and simplicity. In short, people began to feel that reason had failed to satisfy the human spirit. Romanticism was a reaction, a revolt against the tyranny of logic and restraint, an attempt to recover feelings, imagination, and spiritual connection. Thus, the modern period of 1780 to 1830 opens with a burst of creative rebellion, a cry for the human heart against the coldness of intellect. Let's explore this period, dividing it into early romantic period and five interconnected strands. We are going to talk about each of these strands separately. So, the very first strand that we have is the philosophical foundations of Romanticism. What were the philosophies that gave a rise to this? Next, we are going to talk about the pre Romantics and writers like William Blake who inspired this age. Then, we are going to talk about the lyrical revolution that came with Wordsworth and Coleridge. We are also going to talk about romantic concepts of nature and self, the and the impact of French Revolution on literature. So let's start first of all with the philosophical foundations of Romanticism. Romanticism did not appear overnight. It grew out of dissatisfaction with Enlightenment, rationalism, and neoclassical formality. The Romantics believed that truth could not be measured by science or reason alone. It was to be felt, imagined, and experienced. They emphasized imagination as a divine creative force, emotion as the authentic expression of humanity, nature as a living spiritual presence, not merely scenery anymore. For them, nature was the epitome of human survival. This age also talked about the individual conscience of the highest authority. It talked about how individual struggles and individual emotions are similar to nature. Like just like we are unable to control certain of our emotions, like anger perhaps, we are unable to control nature. That does not mean anger is not valid in certain instances. And similarly, that does not mean nature is pointless. By going away from nature, people were losing that connection with their predecessors, their humanity, their connection with the Mother Earth. Romantics fought against that. So, talking about philosophies, one big name that comes here is Jean Jacques Rousseau. He was a man who believed that man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. This motto became a core for Romanticism. Civilization, with its rules and institutions, corrupted the natural goodness of the human heart. The poets, therefore, became a kind of prophet or seer, one who could heal the alienation between man and nature. So that was a little bit about the philosophy behind it. I just talked about the thematic elements of philosophy and also a little bit about Rousseau. Let's talk a little next about the pre-Romantics and William Blake. Before writers like William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the spirit of Romanticism flickered in a few remarkable poets known as the pre-Romantics. They're not known as the Romantics because they were technically writing before the Romanticism. In the previous lecture, I mentioned about Thomas Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard, which was published in 1751. This elegy poem that was mourning the loss of a friend anticipated romantic feelings with its quiet reflection on humble village lives and death that is equal for everyone. Once death comes, it does not wait and it does not care of our standing in society. This humble spirit of freedom and social awareness of our standing was extremely important for the Romantics to come. Then writer, another big name that was quite big, you can say, influence on the Romantics was William Cowper. He wrote of everyday rural life in simple, heartfelt language. But the first truly prophetic Romantic was William Blake. He was born in 1757 to 1827. He was an engraver, poet, and mystic, a visionary who claimed to see angels in the trees of London. He rejected the materialism of his time and believed imagination was the essence of the divine. In his Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, he explored two opposite states of the human soul, innocence and corruption. Next big work by him was The Lamb. Here, a child's voice symbolizes purity and faith. In his poem The Tiger, Blake asked, did he who make the lamb make thee? Did God make us as well? He confronted the coexistence of God and evil. Someone who is able to eat a lamb, a harmless creature, doesn't it have evil? So, did God create good and evil simultaneously? What was the role of religion in all this? Blake talked about that. Through symbolic imagery and rhythmic simplicity, he revealed how industrial and institutional oppression destroyed the human spirit. He was a poet decades ahead of his time, the spiritual ancestors of all the romantics to come. After Blake, let's talk about the lyrical revolution, the man behind the entire Romantic age, a man we might all be familiar with, and that is William Wordsworth. We may not be familiar with the other name, that is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, but I assure you, you are going to study a lot about him because these two were wrote together the lyrical ballet. They were the real birth of English Romanticism. These two friends, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, published a slim volume titled Lyrical Ballet. It was quite a revolution. Instead of writing about kings, gods, and heroic deeds, they wrote about common people and ordinary emotions. Some of the characters they explored were a beggar, a solitary reaper, and a wandering leech gatherer. These were common people and everyday struggles of these people. Wordsworth believed poetry should speak in the language really used by men and capture the spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. It is quite a famous line by him. In his work, The Tintern Abbey, he reflects on how nature restores the soul, and it is about also the disturbance of joy that is present inside us, how our soul is constantly reawakened, rekindled due to little instances in our life. He talked about elevated thoughts and also the freedom of expression. For Wordsworth, nature was not a backdrop but a teacher, a moral force that shaped human character and sensibility. He was someone who talked about nature as the divine ruler. Next, in the lyrical ballet, we have Coleridge. He was someone who explored the imagination and the supernatural. In his very famous The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, he tells of a sailor who kills another passenger and faces spiritual torment. The poem filled with symbols of guilt and redemption shows how Coleridge's gift for transforming imagination into social and moral parables inspired many writers to come. When we read his poetry, he's not just talking about nature, he's talking about the power of imagination and how nature reflects our imagination. Another example is his work, The Kubla Khan. In Kubla Khan, he celebrates the dreamlike power of creation itself together with our imagination. Wordsworth and Coleridge established imagination and emotion as the essence of poetry, overthrowing the classical idea of poetry as reasoned imitation. So, we discussed a little bit about the early Romantic writers and also the pre Romantic writers. Let's talk a little more about Romantic concepts of nature and the self. because as you noticed, I primarily talked about how all these writers were focusing on nature and its beauty. For early romantics, nature and self were like mirrors of each other. They saw the natural world as a living organism filled with divine spirit. This was partly influenced by the pantheistic philosophy, a belief that God and nature are one. So, when Wordsworth writes of nature, he is also writing of the soul's growth. When Coleridge describes the supernatural, he is exploring the hidden power of the mind. This inward turn gave literature a new subject, the psychology of feelings. Poets began to write not about universal ideas, but about personal experiences, childhood memory, solitude, dreams, and loss. This shift from the public to the personal marks the modern sensibility of Romanticism. Okay, so a little while I just mentioned that we are going to talk about the impact of French Revolution on the literature as well. What was French Revolution? French Revolution was a bloody war that lasted from 1789 till 1799. This revolution saw the entire political landscape flipping in France, and it also inspired writers in the English speaking world because this revolution electrified writers for a cry of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Fraternity means brotherhood. This promised a new dawn for humanity. Wordsworth and Coleridge initially celebrated it as a spiritual revolution, and writers like Shelley and Byron, who came later, and we are going to discuss about them soon, continued that passion for political freedom. But this revolution had a violent side as well. As it saw, you can say, people becoming disillusioned with war, with rebellion, and with blood. Still, the revolution spirit left its mark, and the mark it left was that people had a faith in human dignity now. Their belief in change and reform became stronger than ever, and the sympathy for the oppressed and marginalized became much more important, especially because writers were not talking about that. In short, Romanticism's emotional intensity was both a political and spiritual protest against tyranny, conformity, and dehumanization of industrial society. To conclude this lecture, the period from 1780 to 1800 marks the dawn of modern literature. The poets of this time period redefined art as the language of feelings, not logic. They challenged the notion that truth must be proven. They insisted that truth could be felt. By doing so, they made poetry democratic, about ordinary people, natural beauty, and the depths of human heart. As Wordsworth wrote, "To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thought that do often lie too deep for tears." Next time, we will explore how this spirit matured in the second phase of Romanticism, which lasted from 1800 to 1830, and when passion, rebellion, and imagination were at their heights because of writers like Lord Byron, uh, B.B. Shelley, and John Keats. Till then, Allah Hafiz. See you guys soon.